Hi, this is Tamara at mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the Chic Moroccan slippers, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description. There you will find both right and left-handed videos, a link out to the written pattern, as well as links to all the supplies you need, which includes Red Heart Chic Sheet by Marley Bird yarn. You'll need 2 skeins, one in each color, to make 1 pair of slippers. You'll need stitch markers and, of course, your usual tools like scissors and yarn needles. And for this pattern, we'll actually be using 3 different hook sizes. But depending on which size you're making, you only need to use one of these hooks. So these hooks in particular are by Brittany, and let me explain what I mean. This pattern comes in 3 sizes. Let me set the yarn aside here a little bit so I can show you what I mean. This right here in front of me, this is the medium. This would fit a woman's size 7 or 8 shoe. Now, I also designed this pattern with a small, which is a women's size 5 to 6, and a large, which is a women's size 9 to 10. And the written pattern for all 3 of these sizes is exactly the same. The only difference is the hook size. So it's very important to check your gauge against the written pattern. And if you find that it's coming out too small or too large, it's very easy to fix. You switch hook sizes. For the small size, I used the US G hook, which is a 4.0 millimeter. For the medium, I used the US H hook right here, which is a 5 millimeter, and then for the large I used a US I, which is a 5.5 millimeter. So again, check your gauge and adjust from there, and you can adjust the size of your slippers very easily just by changing your hook size. So as I said, the written pattern for all 3 sizes is the same, so let's go ahead and get started demoing the pattern. Okay, now let's take a quick look at the finished slipper before we begin. You'll see here I've got a right and a left, and actually the only difference in this pattern between the right and left slippers is where I put the little bows when I put in the strings. So if you don't want the bows on the sides, if you prefer them in the back or maybe at the front, then there wouldn't be any difference at all. Again, otherwise it's the exact same pattern. We're going to start at the toe here with our main color and then add our contrast color for a few rows here. Some of you may recognize this. It's very similar to other Moroccan tile stitch patterns that you will find on mooglyblog.com. In fact, this slipper pattern was a reader request. So I've altered it just a little bit for this pattern, so it is a little different if you've made those patterns before, but it'll also be very familiar. So we're going to do that for a few rows. Then we start rounds, I should say. We're working in rounds right up to here, and then we're going to break and work back and forth in rows until we get to the very end. Seam it right up the back here, and we sort of fold it in half and seam it up the back to make the back heel, and then do a little bit of edging around the foot opening, and then like I say, we add this pretty little string, and that helps tighten it up if you find it to be a little loose, and it's also just a little pretty accent. So let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, we're going to begin with our main color, so this is going to be most of the slipper. Let me find my end here. There we are. And we're going to start with a magic circle. If you're not familiar with the magic circle, I do have a separate tutorial for it linked at the tutorial that's linked in this description. If you're watching on Moogly, it'll be underneath in the as seen in this video links. So to start my magic circles, just very quickly, I'll go over it here. I'm going to wind it around my finger twice, coming towards me. Pull that down a little bit. I want to leave a good tail to weave in at the end. Then I'm going to go under both loops, pull that back loop underneath the first one. And here I like to just make a little slip stitch. And I'm not going to count it as a stitch. It's just kind of going to hold my circle together there, my magic circle. And from there, I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to make 12 double crochets into the ring. So I'll yarn over and go under both of those loops that are around my finger, pull up a loop, and finish my double crochet just as I normally would. There we are. Oops, dropped it right off my hook. It's a little delicate getting it started. Just take your time. There we go. And now that we've got that stitch around it, you can see my ring actually holds together. I can take it off my finger and just continue to crochet into the ring for those remaining 11 double crochets. Now, as I do that, I want to make sure that I go through both that initial ring and over that tail. That's what will allow me to cinch up my circle at the very end and make it nice and tight. So I'm just going to continue double crocheting right into this ring. There we are. And then when we get to the end, I will join to that first double crochet I made. that chain 2 that I started this round with will not count as a stitch. So I should be getting relatively close. If you're not familiar with double crochets, then you're probably going to want to go back and watch a video tutorial for that. So let's see here. I know I was making those a little bit quickly. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 made. So I need just 3 more here. I want to make sure to keep working around that tail. So that's 10, oops, 11, and 12. There we are. Now I'm going to go ahead. You can see you're supposed to be joining this to work in the round. Well, it's big and open. Not a problem. We just take that little tail, give it a nice tug, and that closes right on up. When we weave in this tail, we want to make sure to go the direction we were going, but then turn and go back the other way a couple times, and that will help lock in that magic circle. So after that, I want to go ahead and join up to that first double crochet I made. I'm going to count back to make sure I join in just the right place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That way I make sure I don't accidentally join my turning chain. There we go. And that is the end of round 1. Now to begin round 2, I like to use a special stitch called the chainless starting double crochet. Now if you don't want to use this stitch, you can substitute instead just a chain 3 or whatever you like to do to start a round or row of double crochets. So to make my chainless starting double crochet, I'm going to pull my stitch up to about the height of my double crochets in the previous row so I can see how tall those stitches were. Put my finger over the loop, wind the loop around the hook, go right into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, if you need to see a separate tutorial for that, if you're not familiar with that stitch and you'd like to see it a few more times, again, I do have a separate tutorial for that linked at the link in the description. So I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker in the top of that stitch. Makes it just a little bit easier to find when I come back around. After that, I'm going to make another double crochet right in that same first stitch. And then to continue around, I'm just going to make 2 double crochets in each stitch around. So in the first round, we had 12 stitches. If we're putting 2 double crochets in each stitch in this round, we will have 24. And then when we get to the end of this round, we'll just join with a slip stitch to the top of that first double crochet again. So I will see you when we get to the end of round 2. Okay, so here I am at the end of round 2. I've made 24 double crochets, so I'm just going to go ahead and slip my hook right into that top of that marked stitch there, pull that stitch marker out of the way, and slip stitch to finish up round 2. And with that, we're ready to begin round 3. Now round 3 is going to be different. We're going to start here with a chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. So not in that very first one, the one we joined to, but over here in the next one. In this combo, the chain 2 plus this double crochet are going to count as a double crochet 2 together. So what I want you to do right here is go ahead and put your stitch marker right in the top of that double crochet you just made and count that as the top of your first stitch for this round. After that, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to double crochet 2 together again, but we're going to do it by working in the first leg, if you will, of our double crochet. The first half of it will go into the same stitch as that one right there, and the second half will go in the next one. So let's do that together. We're going to yarn over, go into the same stitch as our previous stitch, stop when we've got 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over, go to the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then when we've got 3 loops left on the hook, we yarn over and pull through all 3. So it's a standard double crochet 2 together, but that first leg was worked in that same stitch as the previous stitch. So after we do that, then we are ready to begin our repeat. So if you're following the written pattern, this is the part that starts with the asterisk. We're going to double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches. So we're not going to the previous one, this one, we're going to the next 2. So we start our double crochet in that stitch, yarn over again, start a double crochet in the next stitch, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Then we chain 1, then we double crochet 2 together in the previous stitch and the next stitch. So this is where we go back into that stitch again. So we yarn over, go in there, pull up our loop, pull through 2, yarn over again, go to the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So that's our repeat. A double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches, chain 1, and then double crochet 2 together that's worked in the same stitch and the next stitch. So even though we've got a double crochet 2 together here in these 2 stitches, then a chain 1, then a double crochet 2 together in these 2 stitches. So we're only working this repeat over 3 stitches. We're also only creating 3 stitches, the double crochet 2 together, the chain 1, and the second double crochet 2 together. So we're working evenly here. So we're going to continue around. Let's do that repeat together one more time. We're going to double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches. So we go to the next stitch to start, stop with 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over again, go to the next stitch, stop with 3 loops left on the hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. Then we chain 1, then we yarn over again, go into that same stitch that we finished off in the last one, stop with 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over again, go to the next stitch, and then with 3 loops on our hook, we can pull through all 3 to finish. Let's do that repeat one more time, and then we're just going to continue doing that all the way around until we're ready to join. So we yarn over, go to the next stitch, stop with 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over, go to the next stitch, stop with 3 loops left on the hook, and pull through all 3, chain 1, yarn over, go into the same stitch that we finished the previous stitch on, stop with 2 loops left on the hook, yarn over, go to the next stitch, stop with 3 loops left on the hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And that is our repeat. So we're just going to continue that all the way around. When we get to the end of round 3, we will have 16 double crochet 2 togethers and 8 chain 1 spaces. So you can just easily go around and count your chain 1 spaces if you want to. We've got 1, 2, let's see, 3, and 4 already made, so I'm halfway there. So I will see you at the end of round 3. Okay, so here I am at the end of round 3. I have 16 double crochet 2 togethers and 8 chain 1 spaces. That adds up to 24, and that's how many stitches I had in the last round, so I know I'm on track. So I'm just going to go ahead and join to that top of that first double crochet. Remember that counted as our double crochet 2 together. That's why we put that stitch marker in it. So now I will go ahead and pull that stitch marker out, and then I'm going to do something a little different. This is where we start getting our Moroccan tile stitches, or this new version of it. What I'm going to do here is go ahead and pull that loop up higher, and then I'm going to put my stitch marker in that loop. I'm going to put it around the loop and the working yarn. I find it's just a little bit easier here. And this will keep that loop open so I don't accidentally lose any stitches, because I'm going to leave this loop active and set it aside here while I bring in color 2. So if you've made the Moroccan stitches, tile stitch patterns before, any of them on Moogly, some of this will be very familiar, but I have altered it a little bit for this pattern. So what I'm going to do with my contrast color is I am going to join with a double crochet in the first chain 1 space. So you can see our join is right here in our main color. So this right here is that first chain 1 space of the round. So joining with a double crochet, also known as a standing double crochet. Again, I have a separate tutorial for this on the Moogly YouTube channel, and it's linked at the link in the description. However, I'll show it to you again right quick right here. I'm going to hold on to the tail of yarn in my hook hand with the non-hook holding fingers. I'm going to yarn over twice, like so. Find that stitch I want to work into, and here we're working just into that chain 1 space, so not the chain 1 itself, but just the space. Go in there, yarn over, pull up a loop. Notice I'm still holding on to that tail. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. Now, you can see I still haven't let go. I'm going to hold on to this while I make my next stitch. And the next 2 stitches are just 2 more double crochets worked right back into this chain 1 space. So I'll yarn over again, go back into that chain 1 space, make another double crochet, yarn over again, go back in that chain 1 space, make another double crochet, and then I can finally let go of that tail and it's not going to go anywhere. Now, at this point, I like to use my other stitch marker again. The top V of this standing stitch is going to be made of this loop right here. There we are, and the tail itself. So I'm going to put that right inside my stitch marker as well. And then I'll know that that right there is where I want to join when I want to get to the end of this round. So put this back in the loop here, and time to continue on around. Now this rest of this round is very, very simple. We're just going to work 3 double crochets in each chain 1 space around. So skip over those double crochet 2 togethers, come on over here and work 3 more double crochets. Now, as I mentioned before, we've got 8 chain 1 spaces. So if you're working 3 double crochets in each one of those, 3 times 8 is 24, and we're back at our stitch count. So I'm just going to continue working all the way around, making 3 double crochets in each one of these chain 1 spaces. You can see I'm skipping right over the double crochet 2s together until I get all the way around. So I will see you at the end of round 4. Okay, so as you can see, I've worked my 8 groups of 3 double crochets all the way around in those chain 1 spaces, and I've come around to the other side and it's ready to join. What I want to do here is I want to make sure to take that main color, the active loop, which is the loop the hook was in, and the working yarn, which is attached to the ball, and pull those to the outside of the slipper, so towards me. If you are one of those people, some people actually work from the inside of their work, they like to work this way, then you'll want to pull it this way, but just make sure it's pulled towards you. So try not to confuse things there. There we are. So if you're working from the outside of the slipper, you've got the loop and yarn towards you. You don't want them trapped inside. Now we're ready to go ahead and join. So I'm going to go under those loops that I marked, the one of the stitch and that end. Make sure just to enclose it in there when I make my slip stitch. Like so. Then I'm going to pull up that loop, remove this stitch marker, and I'm going to go ahead and put this one just in the loop right there, just in this active loop to secure it so this stitch doesn't come out, because now I'm going to come back to these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and drop those on behind, take out this stitch marker, and put my hook back in that active loop. Oh, I've got it in there backwards. There's a little tip. When you put your hook back in a loop where you've taken it out and you pull on the working yarn, you want the yarn that's moving to be in front of the hook. So I just need to flip that around and see how that's the part that's moving when I pull. There we go. Now I know I'm lined up right, and we're ready to begin round 5. All right, so to begin round 5, I'm going to start with a chainless starting double crochet, chain 1 and double crochet, all worked between the first and last V of the row before the previous round. Not in the chain space, but between the double crochet 2 together stitches. That is a mouthful, and that's read directly from the pattern. I'm going to show you exactly what it means. I'm going to go ahead again, and I want to make sure to pull the working yarn, where'd it go? There we are, the working yarn and the hook off to the side here, away from the direction I'm crocheting. Then I'm going to pull up this stitch to about the height of a double crochet. Then I am going to make another chainless starting double crochet. Again, if you're not comfortable with these, go ahead and just make a chain 3 right here. Actually, it would be a chain 4 because you have to do a double crochet and a chain 1. So I'm going to go ahead and make the chainless starting double crochet by yarning over with this, and then I'm going to go between the double crochet 2 togethers. Now you'll remember we actually started with the chain 2 and then a double crochet, but this is where I joined, so I'm going to go just right between the posts here with my hook. Pull up my loop, yarn over, pull through, and pull through. And then I like to put that stitch marker right back in the top of that chainless starting double crochet, so it's just that much easier to find when I come all the way around. Then I chain 1, and then I'm going to double crochet right back in that space right there in between those 2 posts, but this time I'm going to enclose right there, kind of right where our join is. I want to make sure not to capture the loop and the yarn, but I just want to enclose that right inside that stitch. I'm going to pull it up nice and high, just make a double crochet like so. Just like that. Then we're ready to begin our repeats. I am going to make a double crochet, chain 1 double crochet, which is essentially what we just did, in the next space right here. So we're going to jump all the way over here, come over here between these 2 double crochet 2 togethers, go in there with our hook, pull up it up nice and tall so you can enclose the previous row, make a double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, and go right back in there and do it again. And that's what we're going to do all the way around. So we yarn over again, jump all the way over here, Get both of those trapped in there, make a double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, and go right back in there. So basically, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet is like a V-stitch, and by the time we get all the way around, we should have made 8 total. So let's go ahead. We've only got a couple more, it looks like, to make here, so let's go ahead and make those together. Just going to take my time to find that space right between those double crochet 2 togethers. Pull up that loop, that first loop nice and high. There we are. Chain 1, and then right back in that space. Yarn over, jump over to the next one. Pull up the loop nice and high. Double crochet, chain 1, back in that space. Double crochet. Got just 2 more to make here, so let me pull up just a little bit more yarn. If you need to, you can go ahead and untwist your yarns as needed. And then just continue on around. We're only using 2 colors, and we're not cutting the yarn until we're done with it, so we won't have too many ends to weave in. It won't be too bad. Just a few, really. There we are. Now you'll see here, this was our last one of those, our last double crochet, chain 1, double crochet for this round. I'm right back here. Again, I made sure not to trap either of these loops right here, because now we're ready to join. So before we join round 5, which is what we've been working on right here, I want to make sure to leave the active loop and working yarn of our contrast color, so our blue here, behind the fabric. So I want to make sure those are on the inside, and then I keep these on the outside. So you'll remember we pulled these forward. With our contrast color, we want to push those to the inside. So from here, I'll go ahead and join to that top of that marked stitch. Let me find my working yarn here. There we are. And that is the end of round 5. So we're going to pull up that loop, remove the hook, and put my stitch marker in it again, because for round 6, we're going to go back to the contrast color. Okay, so to begin round 6, we're going to go ahead again, remember where our join is here, and find that first chain 1 space, which is right here. And I'm going to go ahead and put my hook right in there. I don't have any yarn on it yet. I'm just going to put my hook right in that chain 1 space. Then I'm going to come to the inside of my work here and find that blue active loop, our contrast color, whatever your color may be that you're doing your little dots on. And I'm going to go ahead and throw that loop on my hook here and pull it down a little tighter and pull it on through. And yes, it's still got the stitch marker attached to it. Now would be a good time to take it off. There we go. So I've pulled that loop right on through that chain 1 space. So now I've got the loop on the outside of the slipper with the hook in it facing me, and I've got the working yarn on the inside of our work. So from here, I am going to make another chainless starting double crochet. If you wanted to, again, you can chain 3 or make whatever double crochet substitute you prefer. So I'll pull this loop up about the height of a double crochet, and I am going to wind it around, go back in that chain 1 space right there, yarn over, and just work right around the chain 1, right in that chain 1 space for our first double crochet there. I'm just going to go ahead and put my stitch marker in the top of that stitch. There we are. And then make 2 more double crochets in that chain 1 space. So this is going to, after this, just be the same as our previous contrast color round. So we jump on over to the next chain 1 space right here and make 3 more double crochets. This time we don't have to work between double crochet 2 togethers, we're just working in the center of these V stitches. So just work your way all the way around with 3 double crochets in each round, and I will see you at the end of round 6. Okay, so to finish off round 6, we're just going to do the same thing we did before. We want to make sure to pull the loop and working yarn of our main color to the front, facing us, so that we join here in behind, right in the top of that marked stitch with our slip stitch. And then again, we pull up our loop, move our stitch marker into that loop, and leave that back there while we continue with our main color for round 7. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that stitch marker out and get my hook back in that loop. Make sure it's going the right way. Yep, it is. That's good. All right, so then for round 7, I am going to basically do the same thing as we did before. It's just a little different because this time we're not working down in these double crochet two together spaces. We are up here. So pull these again off to the side. Make sure not to work around them at this point, like so. Pull this up for a chainless starting double crochet. Go around, just go right into that space there. We're just going right where we joined, in between these two double crochets. There's not a chain one there. The chain one is between these two, but that's okay. There's a space there that our hook will go into. So we pull that up for our first chainless starting double crochet. Get my stitch marker in the top of that one. And then we chain one, and then double crochet right in there again. So you can see here we have a double crochet, chain one, double crochet. That's where those are worked in. We're working in between those V stitches. There's not a chain one there, but there's still space there for our hook, just like when we worked between the double crochet two togethers. So I'm going to go back into that same space. This time I'm going to go ahead and enclose the previous round, our contrast color round, like so. And then from there, it's pretty much what we did there. But in this time, again, we jump over here and work in between the V stitches rather than in between the double crochet two togethers. So we just do a double crochet, chain one, double crochet, right back in that space. So again, we should have 8 of these V stitches by the time, excuse me, we get all the way around here for round 7. So I'm just going to continue working right in there. Let's do one more together so you can see it here. I'll do it a little slower. We're going to yarn over, come over here between our next set of V stitches that are in the same color, go right in between, right above that set of 3 double crochets right there, and close right between those two right there. Pull through 2, and finish that one. Chain 1, then yarn over and go right back into that same space for another double crochet. So I'll just continue on around here, and I will see you at the end of round 7. All right, and ready to finish off round 7. Again, I just want to make sure my contrast color loop and working yarn on the inside there when I join to that first stitch we made with a slip stitch. There we are. Then, of course, we pull up that loop again, transfer our stitch marker up here, keep those nice and safe, and then we can pull those off to the side. And for round 8, we're going to do a repeat of round 6. So it's the same thing, and we'll start it together again here just to get you started. We're going to get those back there out of the way a little bit. Then we are going to go into that first chain 1 space, so right after the join with our hook, put the loop, the working loop, on our hook. Take the stitch marker out of the way. Pull that loop down tight enough so that I can pull it up through that chain 1. There we are. I'm gonna zhuzh it through so you don't accidentally pull that stitch out. Then we've got our working yarn on the inside. We've got our active loop on the outside, so we can pull that up and make our first double crochet right in that chain 1 space there. That first one's a little wobbly, but that's okay. There we are. Put a stitch marker right in the top of that stitch. And from there, it's the same thing around. We're going to have 24 total stitches because we're going to work 3 double crochets in each one of these chain 1 spaces. So after I have finished round 8, which I'm working on now, we're going to do round 9 and 10 would be exactly the same as round 7 and 8. So the previous round and this round, just do them one more time. Let me pull up the finished slipper here. Okay. So here is the finished slipper again, kind of working one-handed here, but you can see we just have one more repeat of the tile stitch there. So one more round of the main color V stitches, and then one more round of these, and then that's where we finish off these rounds. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off this one, and then we'll pretend we're right here and ready to begin the rest of our slipper, just for the sake of time. So I'll see you at the end of what would be round 10. Okay, so like I said, we're going to pretend that this is round 10 because 9 and 10 are exactly the same as the last 2 rounds we made. So when you finish up round 10, you want to make sure again to pull your main color to the outside here before you join and finish these off. So you can join with a slip stitch or join with a yarn needle, however you like to finish off your rounds when you're all done with that yarn. I'm just going to slip stitch here, pull out that stitch marker. I'm going to go ahead and cut my contrast color because we won't need that anymore until it's time for our tie. Then I'll just go ahead and finish that off and tuck that end into this inside of our slipper so it stays nice and out of our way as we continue around. So then we're ready to begin again. This would be round 11, and we're going to pick up with our main color, and this is what we'll be using for the rest of our slipper until we do make that decorative tie. So I'll get my hook back in my loop there, get that blue out of the way, pull up some gray, and we're ready to begin round 11. Now again, I'm going to be working a chainless starting double crochet, and this is going to be sort of a mashup of the previous gray rows that we've done and the previous blue rows. So we'll pull it up nice and high here, make our first chainless starting double crochet right around that space. It's not really a stitch, it's just the space between the double crochets there. And again, I like to put my stitch marker in the top of that first stitch. And then we're going to work between these V stitches, and we're going to enclose the last blue round, the last contrast color round, but this time we're going to work 3 double crochets in each of these. That's why I said it's kind of a mashup. Instead of V stitches, we're going to work 3 double crochets like we did in the blue rounds, but we're going to work it in the same space as our gray rounds. So I'll yarn over, go right back in between those 2 V stitches, and then I'm going to go all the way up here so I can enclose that blue round, make my second double crochet, yarn over, and go right back in there for a third one. Just like so. So then I jump over to this next space here in between our V stitches, come down here and make 3 more double crochets. So there's 1, whoops, and 2, and 3. I'm just going to continue doing that all the way around. So again, this will maintain our stitch count. At the end of round 11, you should have 24 double crochets. So I'm going to continue working my way all the way around here, and I will see you at the end of round 11. Okay, so when you get to the end of round 11, you just go ahead and join, and we're ready to begin row 12. And you'll notice I said row. We're moving from rounds to rows. The rest of this pattern will be worked just in simple rows. So to begin row 12, what we're going to do is do a chain 2, which does not count as a stitch, and then I'm going to double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches. And you might wonder why I did it this way when down here we started with a chain 2 and a double crochet to count as our first double crochet 2 together. And I'm doing that because we're going to work an edging around this opening here for our foot, and I just want a little bit more stable edging to work, well, that edging into. So I'm going to go ahead, like I said, start with a chain 2, then I'm going to make a double crochet 2 together in the first 2 stitches. So with 3 loops left on the hook, I yarn over and pull through all 3. And that's our first stitch. So I'll go ahead and put a stitch marker right in the top of that one. And then after that, I am going to double crochet in the next 16 stitches. So we just work our way across here for 16 stitches. Oops, I just noticed my stitch marker popped open. There we go. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. Just work right into the top of each of those double crochets around. Well, not each of them, just for 16. So I'll see you after I've made 16 of these. Okay, so I've got my double crochet 2 together and then 16 double crochets. After I've made those 16 double crochets, one little visual clue, you should have just 2 groups of 3 left that haven't been worked into. At this point though, I'm going to work a double crochet 2 together in the next 2 stitches right here. 1, start the next one, 2, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that's where I'm going to stop for row 12. We have 4 stitches left here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these 4 will remain unworked. That's going to be right at the top of our foot here by our toe opening. So from here, we're going to turn, and rows 13 through 21 are all going to be exactly the same. Let's go ahead and make just one of those together. Now, again, you can start with a chain 3. I prefer to start with a chainless starting double crochet. So I'm just going to work that right into our first stitch, like so. Grab another stitch marker here so I can secure the top of that one. And then I'm simply going to double crochet in each stitch across. Now, that just means the stitches of the previous row. We're not going to jump down into those skipped stitches, the ones we didn't work into previously. we're just going to work into the stitches from row 12. So we just double crochet in each stitch across. Because we're turning, at this point we're actually on the inside of the slipper, but that's okay. We're just going to work back and forth in rows until we have basically the length of our footbed. That's what gets us from rows 13 to 21. So if you've got wide feet that are perhaps a little shorter, you could try moving up a size. Really play with the pattern, move up a size, but maybe make a fewer rows. Maybe take off a row, one or two. Try it on. Try this slipper on as you go. Absolutely. It's very easy to adjust. If you have long, skinny feet, you can make the smaller size using the smaller hook and then add a couple rows. Just in our own family, slippers and socks and shoes come in so many different sizes. But with this basic idea, you can definitely customize them for each person. So I'm almost all the way around here. So since we're double crocheting in each one of these stitches here, including those double crochet 2 togethers that we had in round 11, in row 12, row 13 through 21 will each have 18 stitches. So we're just going to double crochet across, turn, double crochet across. So we're going to keep doing that for a total of 21 rows. So 21 rows is total, including these first few rows. So just rows 13 through 21. So that was 13, and then keep counting on to 21. So I'm going to do a couple more, and then we're going to pretend we're at row 22 so we can finish off our slipper together. Okay, now obviously I haven't worked a total of 21 rows, but for the sake of time, we're going to say this was row 21. Now, if you're customizing the length of this, then you want to make sure you end on an inside row. You see how I've worked across the inside of the slipper here, and you want to work to about where it gets just about to the back of the heel, because we're going to add just another row and sort of a row and a half almost. That will add just a little bit more length here, and of course you want it tight enough so that there's some negative ease and it pulls a little bit tighter as you put it on. So if you're following the pattern, let's go ahead and begin row 22 together. I'm going to pull up my hook again, and I'm going to start again with a chainless starting double crochet. So this is going to start out just as all our previous rows here, or at least the last 9 or so, I think I figured out it was. There we are. And I like to put, of course, a little stitch marker right in the top there. I know it takes an extra minute, but it really does save time in the end, I think. Then I am going to make a double crochet in the next 6 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So including the chainless starting double crochet or chain 3, whatever you wanted to do for that first one, we should have a total of 7 stitches made so far. Then we're going to double crochet 2 together twice. So come to the next stitch, start a double crochet 2 together, stop with 2 loops left on the hook, come to the next one, 3 loops left on the hook, we yarn over and pull 3 together, pull it all together there. So make a double crochet 2 together again over the next 2 stitches. And then we're just going to double crochet in the last 7 stitches. So the same way we began the row, with just plain double crochets, we've just got 2 double crochet 2 togethers right there in the middle, and that'll start our little heel curve just a little bit. So it starts curving up a little bit towards the ankle. So let me just get that last stitch of row 22 there, and then we're ready to make row 23, and row 23, get that out of the way, is going to be our last row and our seaming row at the back of our heel. So we begin with a chain 1, there we go, and I'm turning, of course, work back the other way. This is from the inside, again, of the slipper. I'm going to single crochet in the next 8 stitches, or the first 8 stitches. So go into that first one right away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold the slipper in half lengthwise so that the 8 single crochet we just made are behind the remaining stitches from row 21. So let me show you exactly what that means. I'm going to pull my hook up out of the way, and I'm going to fold the slipper this way. So you see we just made these 8 single crochets. I'm going to fold it so that they then are behind the stitches we haven't worked into yet. So I just get my hook back in the loop there. And then what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch through both layers to close up the back of the heel. So this was the last stitch I worked into there. So I'm going to come to the next one of the row, and then I want to make sure I go right into the top of the previous stitch I just made. That one right there, like so. I can yarn over and pull that loop through and just pull it on through for a slip stitch. Then I go into the next stitch of the row, find the next one in behind here, just work right across, like so, pull through, and slip stitch. Find the next one, and at this point you can kind of see how you hold them together and kind of pair them up. And the next one from behind, and slip stitch. We're just going to work all the way across, basically, the remainder of the row here, seaming up the back of our heel. Just match up each stitch one for one. If you've got an extra stitch left at the end, that means you skipped one somewhere or maybe accidentally worked into the same one twice. So you can just pull those back out and start again. It has definitely happened to me a few times. I'm almost at the end here though. It looks like I've done it right this time, which is always happy. So I'll go into that last one there, which is marked. And then the last one there left in behind, and make a slip stitch. And with that, we're ready to begin our edging. I'm not going to break my yarn though, because I'm going to continue with the same color. I'm just going to pull up that loop, pull this stitch marker out, and flip that back to the inside. And now we've got our slipper, our little tiny sample slipper here, but we've got our finished off heel, and we're ready to begin single crocheting our edging round 1. All right, so after you've finished making the main portion of your slipper, all we have left to do is to work 2 rounds of edging around the foot opening and then make the little tie that finishes it all off. You can see I've still got my yarn attached here from the top of my seam at the back of the heel. So all I need to do from here is chain 1 and single crochet evenly all the way around this foot opening. Now, you can do this however you like. A lot of people have different methods they like for working into the edge. The main point is just to work evenly, and I found I always got 50 single crochets when I worked evenly around here. You don't have to get 50. If you get a 52 or 48 or something like that, it's fine, but you do want to try and have an even number. And of course, since slippers come in pairs for most people, if you're making 2, you'll want to make sure you have the same number on each of them. So if you want to, you could even try and make these slippers at the same time, although then that would require a little bit more yarn. But just make sure to take a note of how many single crochets you work around the opening of the first one so you can get the same around the opening of the second one. So like I said, you just single crochet all the way around. So I'm just working evenly into the sides of these rows. I find when it's a row of double crochet, 2 single crochets work best. But then as you come around here to the front, of course, you can just work right into those stitches that were unworked. 1 single crochet in each. Just across those 4 stitches there. There we are, or 6 or however many it was. Until you get to the other side, and then just single crochet right along there. And then when you have worked all the way around for the first edging round 1 here, we just join with a slip stitch to the very first single crochet made, and we'll be ready to begin edging round 2. Now, because I've got such a small little sample one here, and I'm not really taking as much time as I should to make sure that I have the right number here, just for the sake of demonstration, I've been sort of whipping my way right on around. So I'm just going to take a moment here to count and make sure I do have an even number. And then I'll be ready to join and begin edging round 2. Okay, lucky me, I had an even number. So I'm going to go ahead and join right there to that first one. And then I'm ready for edging round 2. Edging round 2 is very simple. We chain 1, single crochet right in that first single crochet we just made, like so. Then we chain 2, skip the next single crochet, and single crochet in the stitch after that. Chain 2, skip the next one, single crochet in the next one. We're just going to repeat that all the way around. Those chain 2s will create little eyelets that we can put our chain through, little bit easier than trying to find chain ones. And it creates a nice soft little, I think a little bit frillier. It's subtle, but it's there. It's a little bit of a, not quite a scalloped edge, but I don't know. I think it's just a little bit more feminine. I guess it's personal preference. But I'm just going to continue working my way around with chain 2, skip 1, single crochet in the next. Okay, so here I am. I've got my chain 2. I've got a skipped stitch there, and I'm ready to join. So at this point, I can go ahead and join with a slip stitch, or what I like to do is go ahead and cut the yarn, pull up that last loop, and then use a yarn needle to connect that very last one. This is just something I prefer. It gives a fewer knots, I guess, to the finished project, but it is totally up to you. However you like to finish off your colors. So I just sew into that last one, and then from there I would just go ahead and weave in those ends before making my tie. Since we're on video though, I'll just send that right down there and tuck it inside and move back to our tie. We're going to make a tie using our contrasting color, or if you wanted to, you could even bring in another color. And then we're just going to go ahead and weave it right through those chain 2 spaces. So let's get that started together now. Okay, so the tie itself is really very simple. I'm just going to start with a slip knot on my hook, and then I'm going to chain tightly for 20 to 24 inches. Depending on what shoe size you're making and how long you like your ties, you could, anywhere in there is fine. You just want to make sure it's long enough to go around and that you have enough left over to tie a little bow with. So I would just recommend, like I said, chaining pretty tightly. You could even use a smaller hook for this portion if you wanted to, or the same hook you've been using, whatever you like. And then you just want to measure the chain from each knot to then the knot at the end. So go ahead and make your chain for your slipper, and I will see you after I've made my own. Okay, so when you've got the length you've desired, I've got my ends cut here, and I just went ahead and finished off that end. So what I like to do at this point to make it a little bit easier is go ahead and put one of those ends on a yarn needle. Doesn't really matter which one. There we are. And then on your slipper, what you want to do is find the spot where you want to put your bow. I like to have them on the outside of the ankle, and I found about 2 to 3 rows in from the heel was a nice place to put it. Of course, on this would be halfway up the foot, but on the full adult size, I found that seemed to be a good spot. You can kind of, let me pull this one up here. You can see right there, about 2 rows in, 2, maybe 3, wherever you like it. Of course, if you like the bow at the heel, the back of the heel, or at the toe, you can move it wherever you want. So this is the only difference I find between the right and the left. For one foot, I would put it on the outside here, and for the other foot, of course, it would have to be on the other one. But basically, find the chain 2 space where you want your bow to be, and that's where you want to start. So you can just go in there and start pulling it through, find the next chain 2 space, and weave it back through. Go ahead and pull it through a little bit. Leave a few inches there, of course. You don't want to accidentally pull it all the way through and have to start over. And we're just going to weave our way through. Make sure you go through those chain 2 spaces and you don't catch the actual yarn. I think that's probably the hardest bit, and one of the reasons I chose to make chain 2s instead of chain 1s. When you've got chain 1s, it's easy to accidentally catch the yarn when you're weaving in these little ties. So I'm just going to work my way around here. It'll be pretty quick here on our little guy. And you can see I've got way too much length here, and I kind of did that on purpose. Even though this shoe is small and I knew I wasn't going to need a full 24 inches, I wanted to show you what to do if you've got more length than you desired, and why it's easier to make a little bit longer and then cut it off than, of course, to make it too short and have to start over. So I've worked my way around here, and I just want to show that I'm coming out the same hole that I started on. If you've changed the number and you come out on a different hole, that's okay. You'll just tie your bow right over that one in the middle. So then I've got both ends here on the outside of my slipper. Whoop, you can see I didn't pull quite hard enough on that, did I? Let's pull that all the way through. There we go. Now I've got my nice foot opening, and it's adjustable, and I can really customize the fit rather, after I've got it all finished here. So you can tighten it up, loosen it up, whatever you need for the wearer. So at this point, I like to go ahead and put a bow in it. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure I've got the right length I want. Maybe put a little bow in. I'm going to have to take it out here to do the rest, but just make sure it's at the right length. Yep, right about there. That side's good. So I want that side to be about the same length. So what I'm going to do, this one's the length I want, so I'm just going to put an extra little knot right by the slip knot, or the finishing off knot, whichever end it is. Just going to work it down here so it's real close to that end. And this is just personal preference. Different people like to finish off their ties differently. I give it a nice good tug. And then I'm going to trim it off close to, but not right up against the knot. I'm going to leave just a little, maybe a millimeter or two, just to make sure that knot doesn't come undone. Then, even though I've chained way more than I need right here, I'm not going to try and actually take those off. I'm going to be a little bit sneakier about it. I'm just going to find that same spot on that side for the same length that I want. Make my knot right there. There we are. Pull it nice and tight, just like the other one. And then I can just trim it off right there, like so. And then it will match the other one. And then I can make my little bow, zhuzh it up however I want. You could probably steam it if you find that these tend to curl up on you a little bit. A little hit of steam with the iron should flatten those out nicely. But that's it. Then, like I say, you make the other one, put the bow on the other side, and you'll have your own pair of chic Moroccan slippers. And that's how you make the chic Moroccan slippers. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it helps you make your own pair. Remember that this pattern comes in 3 sizes, and although the instructions are all the same, you'll need to make sure that you've got the gauge and hook size right for your size. You can make anywhere from a women's 5'6" to a women's 9'10", and honestly, with a bigger hook and maybe a little bit thicker yarn, you could probably go a little further too. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you'll give the pattern and Red Heart Chic Sheep a try. Once again, go to the link in the description for the written pattern, the other video, and links to all the supplies you need. Have a great day and happy crocheting. And don't forget to subscribe.